Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Troutdale Planning Commission, June 22nd, 2022. And we could have roll call, please.
Commissioner Wittrin.
Present.
Commissioner Waidilla.
Here.
Commissioner Leamy.
Here.
Commissioner Prickett.
Here.
Commissioner Wilcox. Commissioner Allen.
Here.
And Chair Stephenson.
Here. Okay, this time I would like to ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Mr. Dan.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And is there anyone wishing to speak to the Planning Commission this evening on a non-agenda item? No one.
Mr. Chair, just for quick clarity's sake, we do have a gentleman in the room who it's Zach. You want to come up and introduce yourself? Zach is going to be our new alternate starting next cycle, but couldn't wait to get started for tonight, so he came along.
Thank you, Chris. My name is Zach. I've been a resident of Troutdale since 2020, and I just want to say I really appreciate the opportunity to contribute and learn and just be around you guys. So looking forward to the meeting and definitely be in touch. So if you have any questions for me, I appreciate it. Otherwise, yeah, I'm just here to kind of follow along and check out the packet and see what's going on with the housing moves that we're making. So
Thank you, Mr. Andrews.
thank you.
Appreciate having you. And Mr. Knight, did you want to comment on a non-agenda item, or are you just visiting?
Hey guys, no, I'm just listening in on middle housing. It's actually something I'm kind of interested in. Strangely enough, I kind of see what the resolution of this is and how it all works out. So thanks for letting me listen.
Okay. All right. With that, go right into tonight's agenda item, which is a discussion on Senate Bill 458 and other future text amendments. Mr. Dan.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everyone. And this is going to be a discussion not so much just focused on middle housing, but implications that have come from middle housing and legislation that has been designed to complement or encourage further middle housing development. So in your packet, there should have been a couple of items. One was a memo from staff. And if I can ask people in the room, if you can again check your volume, because we're getting a little bit of feedback here. So please make sure your computers are muted if you're in the room. So the first item again was a memo from us trying to provide some high level information. Then there was a, it was kind of funny because the Department of Land Conservation and Development calls these one-pagers, yet it turned out to be 5 pages. Explaining what this new Senate Bill 458, which I'll dive into here briefly. So there was some guidance from the state, as well as some examples from some local governments who are also in a similar situation as we are, trying to make sense of what this Senate Bill 458 is. And that's what I'm going to jump into right now. So I'll jump into my presentation screen, and hopefully you all can see it. It is short tonight, so we'll move forward with it. Senate Bill 458 was signed into law this past year in 2021. So the long session, not this winter session. This is again a state action. This is not prompted at the local level nor at the regional level. It was, I should note, adopted near unanimously by both House and Senate. There was no party line vote on this. It originally came up largely from what we understand from the real estate associations and real estate groups that were looking for ways to increase and support housing production. It also came very conveniently on the heels of House Bill 2001, which was approved 2 years before that. Now, you folks in Planning Commission have been pretty exhausted and beat up over House Bill 2001. But because we have a couple of people in the room, just for clarification's sake, what House Bill 2001 did is it effectively opened up more areas of the city to allow for duplex, triplex, quadplex, townhome, and cottage cluster development. In other words, the middle housing types between a single family detached building or dwelling unit and a apartment or condo building. That's called middle housing. This bill, I will say, quite frankly, flew under the radar. It was not on our radar as a planning profession. It was not really on the radar of League of Oregon Cities or typical advocacy groups that we would normally be mindful of. With House Bill 2001, it was very open in the public. It had a lot of development. It had a lot of refinement over time, and there was ample chance for communities, cities, professionals, other people who cared about this issue to help shape this bill to make it something more palatable. This was not the case with this bill. This bill was, frankly, flew under the radar and was passed. Now what's happened is this. This is a companion bill for House Bill 2001, and it goes into effect next week. What it does is it requires cities to apply what is called an expedited land division process for review and approval of middle housing. Now, what does that mean? We'll dive into that. But effectively, expedited land division has been a process that has already been in state law for a number of years. It was largely designed to help speed up certain types of simple land divisions, typically in rural areas or typically with larger lots. We're talking single family homes. And it typically relied on the fact that you can have a plat that has the basic information. You have a lot and you're creating X number of lots, and there will only be one dwelling per lot. And if you hit on certain criteria, check mark, you could go and you can skip a more intensive review either at the staff level or at the planning commission level. The other thing that expedited review does is it shortens the window of time for a property to be divided, to come onto the market, and some would argue the ability for people to acquire and own property at faster level. This all sounds great, but it has significant implications for us as a city, structurally and procedurally, and that's what we're going to try to cover tonight. What I want to stress tonight is that we as a staff don't have a solution or a red line or draft of what the changes have to be, because this is still something we're taking in. And a lot of cities are currently going through the same exercise, how to handle this bill. Unlike House Bill 2001, there was not a model code developed. We don't have a template to go off of where we can then try to see what provisions can be more locally palatable for us. We have Oregon revised statutes. That's basically it. What we do know is we're going to have to restructure our land division chapter. That's chapter 7 in our development code. We knew that there were a couple of things as a staff we wanted to look at that chapter in general. We knew that when we were doing middle housing, when we were talking about common areas and lot sizes and configuration. So we already were needing to go into that chapter. This Senate bill, however, prompts more immediate action, more attention, and suggests a bigger amount of work that we have to do in chapter 7 to be compliant with the state law and to clearly articulate what can be done through expedited and what cannot be, because that's as important, because we will have probably people who will think they're qualified to do this type of land division, but they're really not. So we need to make sure that our local codes are in order and do the best we can with the state's latest wisdom on these types of code changes that we face. Lastly, expedited land divisions removes planning commission on review on select applications. It's just what it is, cut and dry, folks. I'm not going to be asked to defend it, but that's what it boils down to. And that's probably the biggest implication for this group is certain subdivisions that would have normally or historically come to you now won't. And with that happy news, are there any initial questions? And understand that yet again, staff is the messenger here.
So really what this does is a lot of these are gonna, that were threes are gonna become type twos. Right?
Well, type twos, but more like type 1.5s, and we'll get to that
Yeah.
in a little bit too.
And there really won't be an opportunity for the public to comment as they have in the past.
Not entirely. There's still going to be some notifications. We'll get into what those are shortly, but at least for the purpose of a planning commission review, no.
We would want the community, yeah.
We were forced to accept this, right? It's a big force on us.
Yes.
Yeah, that or become greater Idaho or something.
Been forced on us before.
I wouldn't say this is Portland driven. No. This is as much.
Salem driven.
No, well, it came from Salem, but it largely stemmed from very good lobbying from certain interest groups. And in some cases, some strange bedfellows, which includes home builders associations, real estate professionals, and yes, people involved in the housing discussion. But I want to stress too, House Bill 2001 was far more contentious. This passed with near unanimous votes at the State House. And I think what probably happened, if you were to talk with some people after the fact, I think they were thinking they were voting for something, and it turns out it has a much bigger consequence for the local jurisdictions than they had bargained for. Because
Do
it
you
was,
think they read it?
I'm not going to comment on that.
And I guess my next question would be, did any of our reps contact you? You've been around a while, you're pretty,
I have no recollection of,
anyone asking you about this?
no, but keep in mind too, this, and I'm not going to necessarily pin it on representation necessarily, or our local electeds. Okay, I want to be very clear. This bill was not being tracked by a number of people that normally would have been able to track it, because frankly, the professionals, the day-to-days, the Alexes, the Melissas and I were busy trying to get House Bill 2001 implemented. And there was a number of hearings and there was a number of meetings and a lot of rulemaking and a lot of institutional and agency efforts that were trying to figure out the House Bill 2001. And then this one came in and the antennas were not up on this one. If they were, there would have been, I guarantee you, some very loud objectioning to it, certainly from a local government level. We didn't see it.
But his point also is that people that are representing us and did vote for it and didn't read it.
I don't know if they didn't read it or
Right.
not, like, to be fair.
Well, and I guess I'll just throw it out. The question I would have is, did they look at it and say, I wonder how this impacts the cities that we represent, and maybe call somebody or email them, or just try to find out if there's going to be a negative impact at all? Because there's between 2,800 and 4,000 bills that get introduced in Salem annually. And I think some of them are probably fine, and some of them probably not so fine. And I would just think that these guys would be able to look at something and say, hey, probably need to ask somebody about this. That's my rant.
I would say there are probably, and I'm not gonna, I don't follow state politics. So I would say though that the people who probably introduced the bill, I say probably knew what the full implications of the bill were. I don't know if the typical rank and file representatives or senators would have known fully. I'm not trying to excuse it for them. I'm just saying that the people who were at least the bill's authors were very much vested in the House Bill 2001 bill. And again, this bill, unlike the House bill, did emerge from the Senate. So it was from, the origination was different, but the same support group effectively, it's from the same group of politicians, I'll put it that way.
Right.
Chair Stephenson.
Yes, Commissioner Allen.
So, yeah, reading over this, looks like it's great for the development and investment side of things. But yeah, I might even make some money on this one, but I think it's going to be the general public that loses.
Yeah, thank you.
I have just a couple more slides, Mr. Chair, and then I'll yield it back. Some further contents about this bill. There again, staff is operating without a model code. And again, the mechanism for how to review an expedited land division was already always in code. So that's the key thing. This wasn't completely invented out of thin air. It's basically saying middle housing can use this expedited review, not just your 5-acre lot. The cities do have some ability to retain and require and condition certain standards. The critical thing here, and we've seen a trend of this, is that one dwelling unit per each resulting lot or parcel. That doesn't mean that there are ways to further partition property. They just can't go through the expedited review. So if somebody wanted to do a middle housing typology, but didn't want a net result of 1 unit per lot, they would have to go through the traditional subdivision review. You have to have separate utilities for each lot. You can't just have a parent service and then just offshoot it. They have to be, each lot has to be served on record. Easements are necessary for utilities and access if they're not immediately connected. And then there has to be demonstration that a building will meet building code. Now, how one demonstrates that before a building permit is issued is a question that nobody seems to be able to answer. But what has happened here is that the state has said a expedited division can occur before a building permit, during a building permit's issuance, meaning when the building's under construction, or at any time after the building permit is issued. So you could have, say, let's call it a townhome style apartment complex that maybe got built after this law's establishment. And then 5 years down the road, the person who developed it says, I want to now partition it for individual units or individual lots. They can do that now, and they can use the expedited review potentially to do that, provided they can hit on the other parameters. That would be an example of how they could then demonstrate they met building code, because it's built, it's occupied. How you do that for a building that has yet to be built, that's a little unclear. I guess the city probably at the end of the day has still some leverage in issuing a building permit to make sure that plans were built, or issuing a certificate of occupancy. But that's the only leverage that we can probably think of.
So if I do this and I end up in the fast lane at the permit counter, right? So I mean, is this going to bump somebody out of compliance because we're not turning their app around in time?
Can you expand on that a little bit just to make sure?
Okay, so you've got an app that you're working on.
Mhm.
And this one gets shoved over to the corner because we've got to do the speed review.
I mean, I think given our current workload, we still comfortably get applications done well within the amount of time that we're allotted.
And
So
let's just say you took another job somewhere, how would that impact the situation?
How about we let Mr. Lopez speak to that?
I mean, I think we handle a lot of applications as it is. Currently, our workload is, we're working on a number of different types of applications, especially over in the building side. They are quite busy. So I don't necessarily think that this would cause any one application to get prioritized over another. It certainly would add an extra, you'd have to keep an eye out on your timelines because they are going to be shorter. So I think it just kind of forces us to communicate better as staff and make sure that we are meeting these shorter timelines. So
You see what my concern is,
yeah,
right?
yeah, I do.
Question popping up in my head with 2001, and one of our, I'll say, safety nets for the city was, we're not gonna over capacity the utilities in the city to,
Right.
But how does fast tracking relate to, to that piece of the puzzle? Are they still gonna have to get those studies done and have to?
Yes, they still have to do that. What we're talking about here is very strictly land division, the ability to create or merge or move around property lines. At the end of the day, to actually build the suckers for anything with a triplex or greater still needs to have
The studies,
the studies done.
okay, to actually,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this gets it in and out of basically the surveyor's office and
Okay.
in a faster turnaround. That's what is being suggested that could happen. I should mention too, at least in my 7 years of being in Troutdale, we've never once had a expedited land division. We just simply get our land divisions turned around as fast as we can.
Right.
It's just not a common thing that we've had. Other cities have used it, and it's a little bit more observed in counties at the county level.
We haven't needed to, but I think Salem decided that we need to, so we're going to.
they know best.
So kind of speaking on this general process change, what this does, it does condense our timelines to a 21-day completeness review, where currently we're at 30. It gives us now 63 days to approve this. Now, there is an outlet or a relief valve that the city council can extend that time period, but it can't change from that hard cap. The city council has to produce reasons as to why the 63-day period can't be met. Where that falls in is, again, right now, how we as a staff handle what we call partition plats. That is, if you're going from one lot to two or one lot to three, we handle those in a 45-day period. It's a staff level review. The surrounding properties get notified, but you get a turnaround pretty quickly. So procedurally, doing something like this is somewhat already, as Alex was mentioning, in our DNA. We do handle plat applications somewhat quick. The issue is, those are pretty straightforward applications. This isn't potentially X number or dozens of potential partitions that could be now feasibly allowed. And that's, I think, from a staff perspective, well, it's one thing if you're dealing with maybe 4 or 5 lots that become a townhome development. What if you have a 60-lot townhome development? It's expedited.
Yeah. I don't think we're gonna have a problem turning it over. I do think it's interesting that we have to tell them why we would be late. Kind of tells me there's a little disconnect between what's going on down there and the workforce world that all the rest of us live in. Because I don't know of anything that doesn't take longer to accomplish these days. And anybody that doesn't have trouble with staffing, including the city.
The expedited review is a staff level decision. Another critical thing and another departure, and this is again where this body unfortunately gets a little handcuffed, is appeals and how appeals get wrapped. Normally, if somebody wants to appeal a staff decision, it comes to this body to figure it out and to determine if staff erred or if they were correct. In this case, and that this is also the case before Senate Bill 458 came in. In the cases of expedited review, appeal goes to a so-called referee. And the referee is not anybody who's on a city board nor a city employee. It's an independent person. Now, in some cases, in some cities, there is a designated hearings officer. And a designated hearings officer is just kind of on retainer and hears certain land use cases already. The city of Troutdale doesn't have them. The Gresham, however, does, I believe, or has had one before. We're trying to make a determination, might the municipal judge be able to handle that capacity, or does it have to be somebody else? Critically, though, it can't be other staff, nor can it be this body. It has to go to a designated referee. And then what also is different, unlike other land use case files here, is appeals of that person's decision don't go to LUBA or city council as would normally would be the case with a land use application. It goes into the Court of Appeals. It becomes a judicial matter at that point. Just reporting, not writing.
No, I know.
Critically
You
too,
can't
and
make this stuff up.
no, critically here, and this speaks to the one dwelling unit, one lot rule. We've seen a couple of cases, and we've actually had some pre-applications where people are contemplating incorporating an ADU, say within the townhome, or an ADU within the thing. ADUs are not eligible. So if anybody wanted to do an ADU type development, they have to go through the normal subdivision procedure.
100-foot notification.
That is what is in the revised statute. Now, what's not clear to us is that a minimum or a maximum? That's what it says. And that's one of the things what we would try to parse out in a text amendment is that a minimum expectation or max? Because we obviously currently have larger notification areas for both type 2 staff decisions and type 3 planning commission decisions. Can we respect those existing boundaries, or is that 100-foot a cap? So we're going to find that out. We haven't been able to get a clear answer on that yet. But at least 100 feet, we know for sure. And there
Well, that
is,
could be almost across the street. Wow.
what this means ultimately for this committee, this commission is we need to look at chapter 7. And I didn't print it out tonight because it frankly just needs a full restructuring and a rewrite. There are a couple of examples from other communities that we can borrow from to look at it. The one problem that we had even before Senate Bill 458, the one issue that I think if you ask staff where our issues were with this chapter is it is currently skewed toward just typical subdivision standards, but actually a good chunk of our plat applications are partitions or lot line adjustments. And the standards for that are really not well baked. So we had some issues structurally with this chapter already. So this provides, much like with chapter 3 and chapter 8, where we had issues before and we used House Bill 2001 to get this chapter better structured. We're going to try to use this need to incorporate these changes to hopefully structure, condense, and simplify chapter 7. Not to throw out the rest of the baby with the bathwater. The state's already done a fine job of that, but to have the things that we can maintain within our local control just articulated and spelled out and organized in a more easy to read fashion.
Okay.
Yeah. It may also require a change to chapter 2 about procedures. That will be less of a overhaul, but since the state is changing timelines on us, we have a lot of timeline references in chapter 2, so we'll have to change that one as well. All right, now with all of that wonderful happy news, and I do apologize, I'm not trying to make too much light out of it because it is pretty serious business, but it is unfortunately what we're dealing with yet again. Are there any questions we can have answered for you, knowing that there are still a lot of questions that we have as staff that remain unanswered?
Yeah.
Seems like
I think it'd be interesting to have our representative and our senator in this area come and explain.
That's what I was actually thinking, is try to get their thought on it and what they would recommend we do.
Well, if I may, not to speak for them, but I'll speak to provide perhaps balance, because I think you understand how at least staff, or at least outgoing staff, feels about this bill. What advocates of this change or this bill would say, and I've read position papers on it from those who were paying attention to it, which were very few. There is, if you go between jurisdiction to jurisdiction, a whole mess of differences between how townhomes or duplexes or whatever are allowed, permitted, and how they get reviewed. Troutdale, if you think about it historically, has actually been very receptive to duplexes, for instance. We've allowed it in a lot of our zoning districts, and typically when we're talking about a duplex involvement with a land division, it's usually a pretty simple, straightforward partition. That's not the case everywhere. Some cities have made it very difficult to do that. So one of the arguments for having a statewide fix, so to speak, is to better simplify the rules across the board. So certain cities that shall not go named don't get to weasel their way out of the larger statewide responsibility of housing people. because that has happened in the past, and we all know that. And Troutdale does not fall into that equation. We've been actually pretty accommodating of a variety of housing types. But part of that is to get those cities that have not fulfilled their housing responsibilities to be dislodged. Now, the other thing they would say too is that by enabling a quicker period of time to create land division and also allowing for smaller fractional based ownership of land, like let's say you're in a cottage cluster. You might own the cottage, but you don't own the full ground. So you have fractional ownership, you own your structure. And you are a partial owner or you're a partner in the grounds. That provides potentially for some people a easier, lower barrier of entry to join into the housing market and become a property owner or a owner of land. So that, and I think that is a very persuasive argument. And I think that's a very fair argument. So that was one of the suggestions made, but largely it is suggested based on who was, at least outside of Salem, who was also behind this law, was people who are interested in producing housing. And that is certain interest groups and certain industry groups. And I think there obviously there's a motivation, and it just so happens to be in alignment with the trends of housing that we've seen from the state over the past 5 to 6 years. So to be fair to that line of thinking, it's fair that we put that on the record too. There was a rationale for some of it. Whether or not it was executed properly, that might be a whole other issue.
Commissioner Richard.
Just want to say this sounds exhausting after just getting done with 2001 and having that shoved down our throats, and then this having shoved down our throats. And I look forward to the time again when we could do good things in our city and be active in our community and not just defending off the state.
Cricket, did you have anything?
I agree with Commissioner Whitten. I mean, my head's still spinning from the last things we went through. So I just feel like we're losing city control or community control over our own community. And it just doesn't seem right that we are lumped in with the bigger cities when we're not, just because we're part of a metropolitan area. And it just seems that these bills keep coming. So eventually we won't need a planning commission at all.
Right.
There'll be the state will decide it, or the Court of Appeals, whoever gets to decide all this. So yeah, I'm with you, Commissioner Whitten. I'm still fuzzy from the last group of things we just went through, the rewrites but to do another heavy load of this because somebody needed something done right away, which is fine. But they could have given us more heads up and not a last minute, June 30th, 2022. I mean, this is ridiculous. We didn't have any notice, no time, no nothing. So it's just not, I don't feel comfortable. Not to say, Chris, I know you're the messenger, so I'm not saying it to you. I'm saying it to the people out there. You guys do a great job and you work hard at what you do. And then they keep throwing stuff at here and you have to even work harder. Plus do the other things you have to do. So not much we can do about it.
No, I do think though, we're probably going to take the same approach that we did with 2001, which is, okay, we have to do this. Maybe we don't have to do this. You know, what can we do? Is there other ways we can mitigate the impact on the community as a whole and on individual neighborhoods? Because if we can do that, I think the community would appreciate that work from us if we can accomplish that. And more than anything, I'd like to have our representatives come in so I can understand what they're thinking. And maybe they can understand, the impact that this decision, what it does to us.
Well, the message is, I think from the legislature from Salem, is the people are unimportant. They will tell us what to do and how to do it. Used to say, we the people, now we the government.
We've always been known for being a little different out here, so. But I think certainly we're gonna have some work to do, and I think, I look at like parking and some of those things, those are gonna be issues again. That we're gonna have to deal with.
Hopefully Alex is up for it.
The question that I have for you would be, this is dated June of last year. This memo. July 8th, I'm sorry. July 8th, 2021. So are they kind of saying this, that's when we were put on notice? Or is it later than that?
No, July was the date of this correspondence. Some of the details have not flushed out from the rulemaking. So
Okay.
some clarifications that happened. So there was, we did receive an update on it, but again, most of our staff, I can speak for our staff at this, but I think it's probably comfortable speaking across the state, talking to other colleagues. Most of us were already trying to figure out House Bill 2001, how to get that implemented.
Right.
Because we had just finalized the model code. There were still things. The other thing we really didn't talk about tonight is nobody has talked to Building Codes Division and what the impacts are on building codes. We were just having a staff meeting, Melissa, Alex, and I were with our building people. We were asking about just House Bill 2001 and the implications, let alone what 458 may be. Nobody's talked to any of the building officials in the state.
About
Even-
how it would affect code.
Right, even
Maybe you're
things,
not gonna have
even
a building
things
code.
like even things you don't immediately think about, trash service pickup. Counts, this is more House Bill 2001 related, but just how does waste get handled? Bins, storage area, these are types of things usually you would try to tackle through a site development review process or through maybe a subdivision application, and now it's being expedited. So you probably, where you can, need to have certain things in your code where you can at least point to where you have local control and say, you need to at least figure this out if you're not going to allow for us to have a little bit more comprehension in our review.
So ask them to figure it out. Or ask them what their recommendation is.
You talk about what the legislation?
Yeah.
I think that this group can try to figure it out and we can advise this group as best we can. Again, certain cities, because again, it has been years, certain cities that have had more bandwidth have been able to at least get a running start. So thankfully there's no copywriting in borrowing local ordinances. So we will probably use a local ordinance from the nearby community as our starting point. Because again, we don't have a model code to operate off of.
Chair Stephenson,
Cricket.
how does this affect STC charges? Does it affect that at all? You have to have permits and you have to have, so with lot line adjustments and adding in separate utilities, does that affect STC charges?
It's a separate lot with a separate connection.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if we have a full accounting on how to handle that quite yet. What I would say though, is that if you're creating lots and they're single, like if they're standalone lots, there is such a thing as a ERU, an equivalent residential unit, you have it in the code to compel it. And that's usually paid at the time when the building permit gets issued. So then it's a matter of sequencing, because again, this type of land division could be done before, during, or after something gets built.
So
So
you still have to go back and do the SDCs because you're changing the configuration.
maybe, but if you were already, let's say you built a quadplex, you're already having 4 units accounted for, just happens to be on one property, and then you later partition it into 4. I mean, you've already paid for the 4 units.
But you have to pay for 4 connections.
Well, that's, you pay for a utility connection at that point, sure, but you don't pay for an SDC. The SDCs are paid at the time of the larger permit.
That would be considered a change. I know it's not a change of use, but if you're going from 1 lot to 4 lots, it's as an example.
I don't know.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris.
Chair Stephenson.
Alan,
I was just making a comment that for those of you interested in history, look up the housing barons and the tenement housing of the 1800s. So the year has changed, but people seem to be the same. And we're not quite there to the 1800s yet, I'm not saying that, but that's the direction we are headed. And it tended to disadvantage the general public and favored those on the development side. Just some kind of interesting, you'll see some parallelisms if you want to look it up.
thank you.
Any further questions? We have just one other thing to cover on this issue. I guess this is more for sequencing and future calendar objections for Alex and Melissa in particular, also whoever the new director will be. But this is a pretty urgent one, and because obviously it's going to be in effect very soon. It's paired with recent legislation, and we have three potential subdivisions right now that historically would have been routed through you that now are subject to this expedited review that we could see being reviewed this summer. Now, you can't get a text amendment through right away. And right now, again, you have state law, which does provide us some guidance on how to route it, but we have to go with what state law tells us we have to do. But you're going to see a lot of people in the development community, many of them who don't know this exists quite yet, find out about it, and we could see an uptick in these types of applications. So, you know, the last meeting you were talking about other types of text amendments you wanted to consider. Where does this stack in your prioritization list? And that's something only you folks can answer. Do you have to change your development code? Technically, no, because again, the state law has that route and path. But if you want some abilities to have some local control or break on it, you probably need to update your code. But, you know, you have other things you've also wanted to do with your code. And how do you prioritize this versus the other?
You want an answer to that?
Well, it helps us, and frankly, you know, in my new role, I might still be assisting the city in some capacity, so it's helpful for me too, even if I'm not an employee much longer.
How many days you got? No, you're not counting. I would think, I would speak for myself, I would think we're gonna have to move this along very quickly. I think we're at a disadvantage if we don't. I think the better we understand it and can articulate it to the people that we interact with, and then we'll at least know areas where we can tweak it. And, you know, if we choose to go that direction, but I don't think sticking our head in the sand is gonna help us. You know, we're just putting, I'd love to put it on the back burner, turn the stove off, but I don't see that happening.
I guess I just assumed that this was coming forefront and we were just gonna tackle it head on
Yeah.
right away.
I agree. I think it's something that needs to be done right away. And no matter how we feel about it, they've already let the horse out of the barn and we're not gonna catch it. So we might as well try to keep up with it.
Yes, I would agree as well.
Does that mean you guys want to meet tomorrow or something? No, I think we,
Your next scheduled meeting is July 27th. That was partly because of scheduling challenges for a few of you. And, you know, we, the staff, the consultants can give you an update, or even give you at that point for that packet a draft, or not, I wouldn't say, potentially a draft amendment, but at least maybe an example of somebody's code that has incorporated these standards and kept their own. I guess that's maybe the better question to ask is, the next time you talk about this, what do you folks want to see? Do you want to see a draft ordinance from us? Do you want to see a comparator subdivision standard section from another city? What is helpful for you all to advance this?
I would probably say, you know, what you guys would anticipate would be a code that would work for this community and is also going to clear the hurdles that we need to pass. I think that would be one. I think seeing some from other cities would also be helpful for us.
I would agree to see something, at least a starting point of an ordinance to get us going in the right direction. And we could, see something for those cities of what possibly could be good. And maybe some bad examples out there also of, hey, this could be a trap of, a wrong path as well. So let's not follow down that road. So.
For me, I don't know that we need anything in ordinance form. I think just text. I mean, at this point.
Just a
and then we'll
starting point.
Bring it to an ordinance position.
Was the setup much like we had with House Bill 2001, where we had two highlighted colors as far as state required? Staff suggested, is that a helpful way to
Yes,
organize
because
that?
Very actually, whoever's idea that was. should be-
Alex did a great job on it.
No, that was very helpful, actually.
Yeah, because we
Take
do
full
want to
credit,
make.
Alex.
Well, I think we need to understand both.
Yeah.
We need to understand what's coming from Salem and what you guys are seeing as challenges at the local level. You know, so that we can do what we need to do. I think I know the answer to this. Is there any chance of getting like a stay? Temporary extension, something along those lines?
Can you turn back time?
No, I think the first thing, you know, they haven't provided any assistance for this.
Well, I mean, apart from the guiding document, but again, they'll fully admit, I don't, honestly, this is not the fault of the DLCD staff, because they were,
No, I'm not saying them. I'm saying though, when they've done this, they haven't provided any consulting services. They haven't provided any model code. And so they've really kind of put us behind in getting this turned around. And so since they've done that, wouldn't it be realistic to say, hey, look, we need a little more time? Because we have more work to do? No?
it's baked into law. It's June 30th. And because that part of it is that this expedited review is only eligible for certain projects that start on or after June 30th. So if you had a project that was previously done that you were contemplating further subdividing, you couldn't do it if it was built beforehand. You'd have to meet 2 criteria that are almost impossible to meet. So just frankly, again, because the law passed last year, this isn't just from the spring session, it passed last year, and just not a lot of eyeballs were on it. People who did, though, are waiting patiently and have a right to follow that procedure, and it's applicable. So no, unfortunately, no. But again, you don't, again, to be very clear, folks, you don't have to do anything. We strongly urge you to, but you don't have to technically do anything. If when July 1st hits and we have a subdivision application that normally would have been routed through you that now goes through this expedited review, we have to route it through that review. We know what we'll have to do, we think, but we have an obligation. We know what our timelines are going to be. So, we can still handle those things. Nobody's going to get boxed out of developing in Troutdale that they legally can do. The problem is you just don't have any other recourse right now.
I have a couple of questions. One is, well, I guess this July 27th, next meeting, how does what you've got going affect this date? I mean, will anything change if we came up with the changes on the 27th? These projects should still be expedited. Is that right? It doesn't.
There shouldn't be any effect. No, that hasn't been 100% baked and confirmed yet, but I'm 95% sure that we'll still be around, and even in the absence of the prejudice. Alex and Melissa still have plenty on their plate too. I mean, there'll still be service. There will still be the ability to have this on a fast track for review and adoption ultimately. That shouldn't slow it down.
So we're moving quickly. This is a couple of meetings.
Right.
And then it goes to council in the form of an ordinance, and that takes 2 readings. So I mean,
Could be October.
You could be, yeah,
realistically.
yeah, that's probably your fair horizon.
And in the meantime, we have several developments that are fast tracked through.
It could be. I mean, would they have pre-applications, and we're sensing at least one for sure. It's pretty much on the precipice of submitting. And who knows about the other one? But yeah, I mean, there are potentially eligible projects that can take, so you'd say can take advantage of this expedited review.
Yeah.
But even if we were way back when in July 27th, say was the date that everything was finalized, these would still be fast tracked through.
Mhm.
Because what we did, we didn't bypass them being able.
Correct.
One of the questions here is that the LCD answered that has anywhere else done this? The only example that they have is Seattle.
Oh, that's a great one.
Not mine.
Wow, out of the whole country, they have Seattle.
It's the blessing and the curse of being a pioneer in land use planning in Oregon. We did some interesting things and some good things, and then we sometimes make decisions that we wonder where we got that from. We're never one to be shy to lead out of the gate, for better or worse.
Pioneers of Planning Commissioner laying face down the desert. of their own. Okay. This isn't that bad.
I think, I guess Alex and Melissa, maybe just out of deference to you guys, I know our situation from a staffing perspective as far as who's going to be handling what moving forward isn't 100% baked. I think the presumption though is that in my new role, I'll still be advising Planning Commission for the July 27th meeting for this particular issue. So I just want to express that I don't think, apart from just maybe some staff, some paperwork preparation, I don't think right now, apart from maybe just checking in with you all on your readings and getting your eyeballs on it, that you have to write a lot or prepare a lot. I think that'll still be the burden for me, based on my latest conversations with the city manager. So, but one of the reasons, I mean, Alex is always here, but I also wanted to make sure Melissa is here too. They're going to be the staff shepherding and being here from the staff perspective in the interim period until a new director is found. So they'll be plugged into the conversation as well and will contribute meaningfully too. So I want to make sure that they're here and they also that you guys get to see their faces and know who they are and that they get plugged into the conversation as well. So I think we'll be ready to give you something on July 27th to be determined exactly how much and what we can do, but we'll try. That was the one and only topic tonight, so we'll turn it to staff communications. And because you have the full planning staff here, I wanted to actually defer to them to talk about kind of what they're working on right now before I finally finish up with my comments. So Melissa, you're welcome to jump on if you want to talk about anything long-range planning, or Alex, if you want to kick it off with any projects you guys are working on.
Good evening. I'm doing well. Nice to meet you all in person tonight. I think I've only been once before to Planning Commission, so nice to be here. Long-range planning projects that we're working on right now is a riverfront trail along the Sandy through the urban renewal area. And you may have seen this on our website or social media, or hopefully you've gotten some direct emails. The public comment period for it for the Metro grant that we applied for ended yesterday. And we made a big push to get a lot of comments and asked for some direct letters to be written. And I think that we did pretty well in getting those comments to come in. I'm really hopeful for this grant. We'll find out in October if we've been awarded $2 million, approximately $2 million for the trail. For this trail, we've also applied to the Oregon Parks Department, the State Parks Department, for about $750,000 toward the trail. And we expect the full cost of the trail to be a little over $3 million. So we're getting pretty close to fully funded if these come through. We're working hard on still advocating for them. So we'll keep you posted on how that is developing. We've also signed a contract to pursue 90% design phase on this. We're at 60% now. So we'll have 90% of it complete by the end of the summer, and we'll be seeking public comment on the 90% design. So I'll probably come back to you in the next few months. And I think we're planning to go to a First Friday to get some feedback toward the end of the summer on the 90% plans. And then secondly, I wanted to tell you tonight that we've been working for several months with the Citizens Advisory Committees. I'm normally staff liaison to that committee. We've been working on updating our transportation system plan. We're anticipating we'll bring that to you on the 27th of July to share the draft updates and CAC's comments. That might be something to talk about in your comments tonight, how you might want to prioritize Senate Bill 458 and the TSP. Would you want to tackle them all in the same night in July, or might you want one to be pushed to August? And if so, which one? So I would be curious to hear what feels most pressing to you.
I guess I'll start. I would think the TSP's gone on a while, so I'd like to get that moved to council as soon as possible. So I would say the TSP for sure, and I wouldn't have a problem having 458 on there because I think it's going to take more than one night. Anybody? And you might as well eat it first, you know. Commissioner Prickett?
I agree that we should do the TSP first and then we can do both at the same time. We've done that before, so. If we wanna, because again, the 458 is gonna be a two meeting thing anyway, so. Item, sorry, not thing, item.
Comment on the trail. So we're anticipating 3 million from today to when it's opened.
Mhm.
Okay.
Construction.
And we've recently had some pretty high water on the Sandy, and some of the improvements that were done for beach access on the east side were underwater recently. If we kind of looked at flood stage and those types of things as we were designing the trail.
Yes, so we have completed a no-rise study with one of our consultants to ensure that our new trail plans will not contribute to any flooding. I did see in our recent rain, I went to go check the railroad undercrossing, and there was some flooding there. And we do know that that is through the floodway. And so as we cross under the bridge, Chris has just put the image up there, we are designing for an elevated walkway that will be constructed of material much like a dock. So we will be able to accommodate at least a 100-year flood and still be able to cross under the railway.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, has Multnomah County Sheriff chimed in at all with safety aspects on the trail?
No, I don't believe I have comments from the sheriff.
Just potential homeless crime. Some stuff has been happening in some of our local parks. Some issues. I just would wonder what their perspective is. So.
Is that something, Commissioner Whitron, you would want maybe us to present to the Public Safety and Equity Committee to show those plans?
I plan on bringing it up on our next meeting.
Okay.
To question Captain Blevins of what their thoughts are as well.
Okay.
So we've just had a couple incidents talking to local community members about some of our parks and some incidents. So it just, if we open up this large trail, I'm just wondering how much more crime that could bring in. I just wondered if we asked them that to check.
Okay,
So.
good. We can explore that topic. Thank you
Okay.
for the recommendation.
Anything else for us?
No, those are all my updates.
Any
Thank
other
you.
questions for Melissa? Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
From more of a current planning side, we've had a pretty busy year. I think we're around 14 or 15 land use applications for the first half of the year. Pre-applications have been pretty busy also with new prospective development coming in. So Amazon's doing some construction over at their site they're going to start making books at their facility. So we're going through some of the process with that. The Love's gas station just submitted their land use application to demolish and rebuild their convenience center. So they will have a new gas facility. I think they're hoping to aim by sometime end of next year to have that finished. There's been some smaller residential unit developments that have been approved also. And then just regarding Senate Bill 458, there's a lot of moving pieces with that. And we do have to coordinate a lot with building and public works to make sure that things get done correctly. But from the things that I would look at, and I would like to stress that we are not skipping over any of the standards as far as design standards, lot dimensions, setbacks, things of that nature aren't something that gets skipped over in that process. So we still are making sure that the changes and standards within the code that you guys have created for us aren't going to be passed, and we're going to still make sure that they meet all of our code in just a quicker fashion. So I think that's about it.
Thank you. So any questions for Alex? Okay. You the closer now.
What's that? Closer, I don't know, yeah. No, this is gonna be my final meeting tonight in my current role. I do want to say mentioned it last meeting, but it bears repeating that you folks have a tall order, I think. And I would be curious what Councilor Glantz thinks, but I think you guys put in a ton of work, and generally not a lot of general public understanding for how much work this is, how difficult these things are, how oftentimes you have to hear things like you heard tonight that irritate the heck out of you, that you are absolutely powerless to do anything about. It's thankless many times, but you still do the work, and for that I commend you, and it's been a privilege to work with you and to serve you in this community in this capacity. So I thank you for that. I want to thank you all for your attention, your questions, your care for this community. There are a lot of long nights, there are a lot of tired evenings, there's a lot of cursing in the background sometimes for some of the things you ask for us to put together in a packet, but you do it because you want to make the right decisions, and that's what it's ultimately there. You know, when people ask, what is a commission for? A commission distinguishes itself from a committee in one significant degree. A commission is charged with making decisions. Yes, you have to make recommendations too, but you are entrusted with that awesome responsibility. You guys do it better than anybody else I know. And that's what I wanted to make sure I could share tonight. I'm very thrilled in my new capacity that I'll still, I believe, at least certainly for at least a 2 or 3 month period, we'll continue to work with you all. God willing, and the creek don't rise. Stop shaking your hands, Tanny. And you know, presumably, as more things descend from the heavens for us to tackle in the months and years ahead, which there will be. This is not the end of it. There's more to come. That maybe I am of service to you in similar capacities, but perhaps in different ones too, where we are not always playing the role of defender, but we can maybe be offensive from time to time in both meanings of the word offensive. Because at the end of the day, we represent communities, we represent the people, we are closest to the people, and we have that responsibility and that trust. And the more things like this happen, the more the trust erodes. And when I get asked, why am I leaving the public sector? It's precisely because of that. My profession has come under attack multiple times. And it has, I think, affected the trust that the public has in local decision-making and in local governance. And there have to be people that are on the front lines that are willing to go to bat for the localities. And I think in my new role, I can help this community, I can help other communities, and I can help private clients stress that point to the people who need to hear that. So I wanted to just put that on the record. It's been an honor to serve Troutdale. I've enjoyed my time. You have excellent, excellent, excellent staff. They're consummate professionals. They're really good people. Keep them here as long as you can. And just find the next man or woman to lead the department. The department's in much better shape than it's been in, but it has certainly lots of room to grow and improve. And I look forward to seeing how the new person puts their mark on it, along with Alex and Melissa. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Oh, and we're closed on 4th of July.
That too?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Commissioner Prick, well, wait a minute. We'll start with Councilor Glantz.
Oh, I just wanted to say thanks to Chris for all his work, and looking forward to continuing to get to work with you. And of course, thanks to the Planning Commission. And yeah, this was nothing like dropping a bomb on your way out the door.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Prickett.
Chris, you've been a great team member, and we've hashed out quite a few things in your tenure, and we'll miss that. We'll miss you just sitting there in the chair and giving us all the information we need. Your staff and you are doing have done a wonderful job, and I appreciate all you guys do. Again, you guys are behind the scenes and nobody sees all this, but we do. So we appreciate it. I have one question, though, not for you guys, but maybe you can lead me to the right person. In my neighborhood, there are several cars that are parked on the street with no license plates or temporary licenses. And I'm not sure where to go with that. According to what I thought, you had to have if your car's parked on the street, it has to have a license plate at least, or a temporary license and registration. But I don't see any license plate front or back.
Well, where you can go with that, Commissioner Prickett, is I'll just share a screen real quick. If you go to the city's website,
Uh-huh,
let me pull it up here. If you see it, okay. If you go
yeah,
up to how do I, and hover over that and report a code violation.
oh,
Click-
okay, okay,
And then there's an online form. You fill it out, provide the names, makes, and models of the cars, and our code officer will be on it. It's emailed right to you.
okay. Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure I'm going to the right place. I've looked on the website. It's fabulous. It's easy to use. So yeah, I will go there. I didn't know if that was the proper.
Didn't mean to suggest you hadn't. It was just also.
But right, for everybody. Thank you. And good luck. And we're looking forward to seeing you in the future too, on the other side.
Commissioner Allen. Anything?
Yes, Chris, you're awesome. You've done well with, well, I should say exceptional with every challenge we've been faced with. And I appreciate the input you've given. And sometimes you do have to deliver news that's not as good as other news, but you've done it well. You've kept us informed, and that's very much appreciated. And if you don't mind, personal question, do you know off the top of your head the height limit and miles per hour limit of a flagpole in Troutdale?
You said of a flagpole and what was the other part?
Height limit and the miles per hour that needs to be rated for. Is-
I think it might be, I'm not sure. I know the miles per hour thing probably comes from building. I
Yeah,
think that's,
yeah.
but I don't know.
Yeah, the miles per hour, it depends honestly where you are in the city, because there's a couple of different wind velocity ratings across the city. The height, we can get back to you.
I can look it up. I was just checking to see if you had it on top of your head.
Sorry.
So I appreciate it. Thank you. You've been excellent.
Commissioner.
Done working for 4+ years.
Thank you much.
Stick around. Stop in business.
Oh, well, I'll see you on the 27th.
Commissioner.
Chris, just thank you for everything and learned a lot, and thanks for being so receptive and appreciate everything you've done. So, and for everybody else, we do have a public safety and equity meeting next week. So if anybody has anything, feel free to forward it on to me and I'll bring it up next week. So.
Is there anything, Commissioner Whitford, on that from your earlier comment that you would want from our staff regarding the trail project, just for an FYI to help you with that conversation, or just info sheet or anything like that?
Yes, and if potential where the trail is going to be, everything else, if I could get that information to pass along to Captain Blevins, that'd be fantastic to give him the information, because I don't know how informed he is or isn't.
He should be. I was wondering, I guess, more specifically about the other committee members there.
They probably are not informed as well. So yeah, just a little info.
Okay, we can touch base off after the meeting, confirm with you, get that to you.
Okay.
Krista, thank you for being the professional that you are. And good luck in the future. We'll miss you.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, Mr. Knight, did you have any comments? Really?
No, thank you. I really appreciate you guys letting me sit in tonight, and good work, and we'll catch you next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Chris, I think you've done an outstanding job, and you've come in and made a lot of positive changes. And as Marv says, professional that you are, and I think you're going to do well wherever you go. And I think we're better for having you for 7 years. And I just wish the best to you, Rachel, and the boys. Just wish you guys the best going forward. And if we do have you on a string for a while, it's better for the city. Thank you. And with that,
I will make a motion that we adjourn this evening's meeting.
Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Good luck, Chris.
Good night.
Night. Nice seeing you, Cindy.
Same here.
Traitor.